Hey, I'm Tom McLaughlin. Welcome to the shop. One of the great jigs you can make are those to shape curved parts, especially as it pertains to chairs. I'm in the middle of making this tall Craftsman Style Rocking Chair, and I wanted to make a jig that would create this long curved leg in a predictable, efficient way. So I made this jig and just made it from using my master pattern and a few simple parts. And the result is a leg like this that's so smooth, there's very little cleanup. It's fast and easy to make, and you have such accuracy that the results of that flow through the whole project and make everything turn out better. Let me show you how I made this. So to get started, to make your jig, you'll need your master pattern that you're trying to duplicate. You'll need the board that the whole jig is built on. In this case, for this leg, which happens to be the pattern for the tall Craftsman Style Rocking Chair, the tall version. So the board here is 48 by 13. Of course, whatever your shape is, you'll make your support board appropriate for it. Then you'll need some toggle clamps. I use 6 for this type of jig, and these are the bearing blocks or indexing blocks, whatever you want to call them. And I've got 6 of those. I've got these little 16th-inch spacers that you'll see what they're for soon. These are just pieces of veneer. And then these little stop blocks to index the bottom of the foot off of. And we'll need some glue and some screws. And I also have my little 18-gauge nail gun that'll come in handy and make it more quick to build. So the first thing we need to do is lay our pattern on the support board, and I've already made very light pencil lines where I want it. So I'm going to space these apart from each other, and I've got this is the front of my leg, and now I just want to mark that with a pen so I can really see it. A little line at the end. So there I've got the front of my leg, and then I'm going to come back here and do the same thing without flipping it over, but now marking the back side. I like using pen because you can really see it when you're on the bandsaw, and it doesn't make a wider line like a pencil does when it's dulling. Okay, that's that. Now, I actually start the cut, or we go beyond the end, so I'm going to continue this line just with a straight edge so I can make a better bandsaw cut. Got to do all 4. And that's it. Now we'll take it to the bandsaw. So now back at the bench, I've got my pattern, and I've got these 4 little brads that I'm going to use to tack it to my freshly sawn support board. And I'm backing it off just a little bit to leave about a 1/16 of the waist overhanging on that curve. And I'm going to tack it right there. Okay, this is a good time now to put the stop lock in at the bottom. So I need a spot of glue. I'll rub that in a bit. Then I want that to align flush with the surface of the leg so that when we're coming down we don't get any kind of tear out or anything. Okay, I'm just going to pop that in. Okay, now I'm ready to go to the router table, and I'm going to flush route by letting the bearing ride on my pattern so that we get a flush copy into the support board. Now with this edge routed nice and flush and having the same pattern as our master pattern, we remove, see how lightly tacked it was, just about a 1/4 inch. Just want to push those out. Now we're going to move it to the back and repeat the process. Come back here, set it. So I've got a little bit overhanging here. And I'll put my foot right there. But let's get it tacked down first. That's it. Now I'll glue down the foot. Get it flush again with the back of the leg. It's a nice smooth transition. That feels pretty good right there. And we're ready to route flush again the bottom support board. So now we've got the back routed flush as well as the front. So we basically have transferred the shape of our master pattern to one of the front edges of our support block and our back edge of the board. So now we've got to set up these stops because our regular leg material is about this thick. And here's an example of a board that will actually make 2 legs, which I'll saw out in a second. But you can see that's going to actually sit up here, once it's sawn out a little heavy to this shape. And this backer block will bump against and index it onto the shaping form. So this will be our first cut on the shaping form. And what I think of when I'm setting this up is I can see the grain down at the foot here is running the steepest out. So that grain, we want to make sure that the cutter head is spinning counterclockwise as it cuts this grain. Otherwise, it will tear it up. So this will be my first cut. My router bit will be spinning counterclockwise as I look down at it, and it will come and make a nice smooth cut here. So that is our first cut on our pattern, and then we'll switch, and this will be the second cut because, again, the router bit will be turning in the appropriate direction where the grain is so steep right here at the bottom. So let me get my blocks in shape here, and we want to transfer our pattern back to the front, right where we were. I can just tack that right in. It'll find those holes. Now, we're going to use our pattern to simulate the actual full block when we've got it. Now, we can't butt these right straight up against the pattern because it's our first cut. If we did that, we'd have nothing to take off the second side because we would have indexed to that final dimension. So this is where we want to use our spacer blocks. I'll bring in the spacer, 16th inch spacer, and that will just bear right against there. And then I'll set this one up at the top, right about there. And the last one will be right down here at the bottom. So what I want to do is just attach these blocks, and I will glue them and tack them from underneath and then let that set up. But that's going to give me a nice full 16th spacing right in behind the blocks so that when my workpiece is first cleaned flush on this edge, I'll bring it over to this side, and then I'll set a second block, these, so that it will cut it flush on that side. If it's not totally clear yet, I think it will be as we go along. So we've got it locked in. I just need some glue, and I'll just start gluing these blocks on. Rub that in a little bit. Now, it takes a little time, as you can see, to make this, but boy, what a time savings it makes over the course of the project. And not to mention the increased accuracy you'll gain with this jig. Okay, that's firming up a bit. So I can come over and I've got some longer brads in there. That's good. Same thing in the middle here. There it is. You can see there's a little space between the block and the pattern on all three blocks. So that's going to be what will get trimmed off on this side on the second cut. So these secondary blocks that we set now will again index on the pattern. I'm going to move it over on this side, but we'll go right up flush to the pattern. So that second cut will cut our workpiece identically to the shape and dimension of our pattern. Again, we'll butt up against our stop. We're nice and flush. That's it. Okay, so we no longer need our spacers. Get our new blocks up here. We'll position them next to the others and get them glued down. Okay, they're all nailed off. Now I can remove my pattern again. And I can use it to go cut out some shapes now in my real workpieces. This will get to set up a little bit, and we'll come back and give it a run on the router table. All right, so I took the pattern, I drew it on top of that white oak plank and sawed out our first blank. Now, I don't know if you can see it from there, but I left the line. I actually tried to leave a little light between the line so that we've got approximately a 1/16 off the line, off the actual size of the pattern on each edge. So now it's time to set up the toggle clamps. So I'll go ahead and sit my workpiece in the jig, and you can see the toggle clamps are going to go right on the block that is abutting the workpiece. So I've got to set these in place here. I'm just going to screw them down and then adjust these nuts so that when it clamps down, it's snug but not too firm. So I'll just go ahead and get some screws here and run them. These just don't have to be much. They're just 1-inch drywall screws. And I'll go ahead and run all these in. All right. So that's all there is to it. I've got all these toggle clamps adjusted so they fit snugly but not too tight. If you jam them too tight, they'll actually spring the board out of square from the edge, so you'll get an imperfect cut when you're over at the router table or the shaper table, whichever you prefer and have. Now, these blocks, I didn't mention, I dressed those just about the same thickness as the stock. Just makes setting up the toggle clamps that much easier. So now, I've got that all set up. I just have one thing left to do on my jig. I want to mark it so I don't mess it up and say first, this is my first cut, and then this will be the second cut. And we can't go wrong. Then I like to say this is the Craftsman rocker. And that would be the tall version. All right, that's all we need. We've got all our information on there, my first cut and my second cut. So now, just using the workpiece, setting it in the jig, indexing it toward the stop at the bottom till you feel a good positive stop. Then you can lock down each of the toggle clamps, and we're ready to take it to the shaper table. Now we just change position. Move the workpiece to the second cut. So fresh off the router table, and it's nice and smooth. Very little cleanup necessary. Let's go ahead and pop it out. And you can see we now have an identical match to our pattern. That's going to make things so much easier, more accurate, and easier to clean up. It just helps you do better work all along in your project. So that's it for our demo on how to make a jig for shaping curved parts. If you want to see more, check out epicwoodworking.com. I'm Tom McLaughlin, and I'll see you next time.